so let me know down below if you heard of this first story. Like I said, I might do 1 or 2 stories. I'm not too sure, but let's get to. Like I said, it's titled Don't Believe a Word. And as usual, I will be putting in my 2 cents. So, the match was perhaps not what Cindy Hack's friends and family might have expected. Cindy was blonde and gorgeous and just 19 years old. Her attendant, Dr. Roy Makepeace, was handsome and an eminent psychiatrist. But at 37 years old, he was 18 years her senior. Cindy had met Roy while working as a nurse at Blenheim House, a facility for emotional troubled children in Vancouver, Canada. She would not be the first nor the last nurse to fall for an older doctor. Remember, his name is Dr. Roy Makepeace. Still, the pair appeared happy together, and that was the only thing that mattered. Despite the prediction of some, the marriage would endure for 25 years before it eventually ran its course in 1982. Even then, the couple remained on good terms. They would even date occasionally. Now, see, this is a case that this actually worked out. In one of the videos, I said, age ain't nothing but a number. I just feel as if, age ain't nothing but a number once you hit 21. But this is a rare occasion. He was 37, she was 19. They actually worked, got married, and it worked for 25 years. That being said, though, I think it was easier because they both were in the medical field. She was a nurse, he was a psychiatrist, right? Because I always say, what would a 37-year-old have, what you talk about to a 19-year-old? But in this case, I guess, But 1982 was also the year that dark cloud first appeared on Cindy's horizon. Cloud that announced the coming of a storm no one could have anticipated. You ready? Buckle up. Here we go. It started on October 12th of that year when Cindy called the police to report that she was receiving obscene and threatening phone calls. That was followed in quick succession by complaints about a brawler, a rock thrown through a kitchen window, and the pillow on her bed being slashed. Now, you can get phone calls, you can get letters, you can, even the rock being thrown against in your window is creepy. But there's nothing more creepy than knowing that someone was in your house, in your bedroom, on your bed, slashing my pillows. That means you found a way inside my home. That last incident particularly concerned the police. It appeared that Cindy had attracted a stalker and that he'd been inside her house. There is nothing like living in a place where you feel as if you've been violated and knowing that someone entered your home. But who? Who might be targeting the recent divorcee? The obvious suspect was her ex-husband, but Cindy was adamant that her divorce had been amicable and that she and Roy had a cordial relationship. Besides, it was Roy who urged her to call the police after the pillow slashing incident. No, it definitely wasn't Roy. Pat McBride, the officer who had responded to the call, wasn't so sure. He recommended that Cindy installed deadbolts on her door and even volunteered to do the work for her. Pat McBride. We have to remember these names. Pat McBride was the officer who recommended her to put deadbolts and even asked to do it himself. Now, he didn't do this out of the kindness of his heart. McBride was attracted to the striking divorcee and made his intentions clear soon after. By the end of October, the two of them had moved in together. By having a police officer on the premises did not seem to discourage the stalker. In mid-November, Cindy discovered the picture of a corpse under the windshield of her car. Shortly after, her telephone line was cut. Also, in November, McBride found Roy, her ex-husband, in the alleyway behind Cindy's house, carrying a rifle with a handgun stashed in his waistband. The doctor said that he was there to protect his ex-wife. You might think that with all these things going on in her life, Cindy would have been glad to have a protector around. However, by early December, she asked McBride to move out. Now, the stalking incidents escalated with phone calls and letters that contained gruesome pictures and menacing words and phrases. But these were just words, just pictures, nothing that could cause actual harm. That was to change on January 27th, 1983. The upstairs neighbors are home, so if you hear the squeaking of the floor, it's them. On that day, officers responded to a call from Cindy's house and found her unconscious in her garage. She later told the police that she had answered a knock at her back door and had been approached by a man who grabbed her and dragged her to the garage. Here, a second man was waiting. The assailant then slashed her with a knife and knotted a black stocking around her neck, pulling it so tight that she passed out. She could remember very little after that, but had a vague memory of being SA'd with the handle of the knife. Thankfully, though, she suffered no serious injuries other than a dozen small cuts to her arms and legs, believed to have been inflicted with a scalpel. Now, I am not calling anyone, naive or stupid, right? But why would you answer the door without finding out who the person is? All this is going on. You had letters come to your house, people were inside your house, slashing your pillows, throwing, rocks through your window. You're having pictures of dead corpse on your window shield. Like, what made her open the door to a complete stranger? Because she said that on that day, she answered a knock at the back door and been approached by a man who grabbed her. Listen, I've been through some shit. If someone knocks on my front door, unless I know who you are, and even so, I might even tell you to pull up your badge so I can see your work number or something. I'm not opening up the door blindly to anyone, especially if you're getting stalked, you know what I mean? This attack on the person was the last straw for Cindy. Shortly after she moved out of her house and accepted her ex-husband's offer to move into the home they shared during their marriage. Roy was living elsewhere at the time. Despite his apparent generosity, though, the police had now flagged Roy as their number one suspect. The cops also believed just come to your job and just follow you home. That simple. You know, because I felt bad that I read here that she moved a lot in a couple of months. 3 in many months. If this wasn't designed to throw off her stalker, it failed miserably. The harassing calls started up again immediately, and they continued even after a 4th move. With the poor woman now hovering dangerously close to her breakdown, Roy suggested that she take a vacation and finance a trip for her to visit her brother in Jakarta. Where's Jakarta? Cindy would spend nearly a month in Indonesia. Oh, see, okay. She would spend nearly a month in Indonesia enjoying 18 months of freedom. She had 18 months, but that would shortly be lived. No sooner was she back in Canada that her stalker started up again, and it was escalating. See, I don't care if my brother had 15 kids, right? I don't care, and I don't even know this. I don't care how hot Indonesia is, right? I would be a babysitter to all 15 kids. I would be a maid, a slave. I would not be going back to Canada. I'll be right there with my brother. I wouldn't give a shit if I have to sleep on the floor. There's nothing better than peace of mind and sleep. I understand she had a career and all this stuff, but I mean, this is ridiculous. On August 22nd, 1983, the first of many threatening letters arrived at Cindy's workplace, the same hospital she's been working at. 2 months later, a strangled cat was placed on her lawn, along with a note that read, "You're next." See, now you're bringing the kittens to my lawn. Now we're killing cats. Like, absolutely not. Just 2 weeks after that, someone trashed her garden. In the weeks that followed, there were more letters and 2 more murdered cats. Like, why are we murdering these poor cats? They did absolutely nothing. You know, anyone that kills animals, watch out for. It's definitely a sign if your kids are killing cats or any type of animals, squirrels, anything. Red flag. By November, Pat McBride was suggesting, remember Pat was her old lover, also a police officer, was suggesting that she hire a private investigator, both for protection and to find out who was behind this. He recommended his friend Ozzy Caban, and Cindy was happy to go with that. Caban's present at least brought her some peace around Christmas. At around 6 p.m. on January 30th, 1984, Ozzy Caban received a desperate call from his client, Cindy Hacks, saying that she was being attacked in her home. Caban raced over to her residence, arriving less than 15 minutes later. The front door was locked, and he had to force his way in. He found Cindy lying on the floor, a paring knife driven straight through her left hand. So now she has a knife through her hand. A black stocking knotted tightly around her neck. That's the second time. A knotted black stocking was wrapped around her neck, right? She had also been struck on the head, and there was a needle mark on her right arm, although later tests would find no foreign substances in her bloodstream. Questioned by police, Cindy insisted that she could remember nothing about the attack. However, the cops were certain that she was hiding something, and they thought they knew what it was. Roy Makepeace remained at the top of their suspect list. Pressed on her relationship with her ex, Cindy eventually admitted that their marriage physically abused her. This admission resulted in Roy being hauled in for questioning, but he remained unconverted during 6 hours of intense interrogation. He would never hurt Cindy, he insisted. He did, however, have an idea of who might. He suggested that she might have angered an organized crime family through one of the traumatized kids she was working with. How far-fetched was that shit? That maybe she pissed off an organized crime family through one of the traumatized kids she was working with. The police would never follow up on this seemingly far-fetched lead. Instead, they subjected Cindy to another polygraph, which she passed. Meanwhile, the harassment continued with letters to Cindy's home and workplace, cut phone wires, broken windows, and another murdered cat. Damn, that means he murdered at least 4 cats. In another incident, someone broke in while Cindy was at work and inflicted. Okay, I'm not gonna tell you what they did to her dog. We're gonna just keep that moving because that's some bullshit. Like, the dog did not deserve what he did to her dog. And then during that incident, they found a sexual, explicit birthday note and a cigarette butt of a brand that Cindy did not smoke. At around 8:30 on July 3rd, 1984, Cindy called Caban and told him that she was taking her dog for a walk in Dunbar Park. Now, why? I just don't understand. Like, all this stuff has happened to you. You have been strangled. You have been, a knife has been through your hand. You were dragged into your garage. You were beaten. You were SA'd. You were all this stuff. I would not be walking my dog to no effing park. Like if my dog could not go out in the backyard, I mean, up and down the block tops, I just can't believe she did this. Like, I know people have to live their life and they can't live in fear, but damn, like... Alright, so anyway, she called Caban and told him that she was taking her dog for a walk in Dunbar Park. 3.5 hours later, a resident in the area answered a knock at his door and found Cindy collapsed on his porch. Another black stocking, knotted tightly around her neck. She later told the police that a green van had stopped beside her as she was walking home, a bearded man at the wheel and a blonde woman in the passenger seat. The man had asked for directions. That was the last thing she remembered. A physical examination would find 2 needle marks on her arm, but no drugs in her system other than her prescribed antidepressants. By now, the detectives working on Cindy's case were beginning to have their first doubts about her stories. It all seemed too bizarre, these frequent attacks by seemingly random strangers. Caban was still a believer, though, and in August 1984, he brought Cindy to a hypnotist called, I don't know if I believe in hypnotists. Does anyone believe in that? I don't know if I do or not. No, I don't. Well, they brought Cindy to one, hoping that she might remember more under hypnosis. The first session uncovered nothing of note, but the second brought a stunning revelation. Cindy remembered that she had once witnessed a double homicide. During the third session with the detectives there, Cindy recalled even more. She revealed that during a 1981 yacht trip with Roy, he had murdered and dismembered a young couple on Thorpe Island. This was huge, far bigger than the current investigation into Cindy Stalker. It also turned out to be untrue. I'm like, okay, like, enough is enough here. I just scene nothing unusual. The police also could find no evidence of anyone who's gone missing from that island during that time frame. It only served to strengthen the growing belief that Cindy was making things up. Over the next 6 months, the harassing letters and phone calls continued. Excuse me. Driving Cindy deeper and deeper into a pit of despair. She was losing weight, isolating herself from friends and work colleagues. Her family was generally afraid that she might self-harm, and those fears were vindicated in June 1985 when she swallowed a handful of pills. That saw her confined to the hospital for a week. She was released on the understanding that she would stay with family. Instead, she returned home and walked straight into a renewed campaign of harassment. To this point, I mean, no one should be harassed, but I feel as if, was Cindy actually taking this stuff seriously? I would never want to be alone again, and even the psychiatrist and them are telling you that you should be with someone. Why would you want to go home back to that nonsense? Same thing, why would you want to walk your dog at night? Why are you opening up the door to complete strangers? I don't understand this. I really don't. First, her phone lines were cut again. Then she found a cosmetic case on her couch packed with rotting meat. So that means the guy is now back in your house. He took your makeup stuff and put rotting meat in it inside your home. Then her stalker resorted to arson, apparently trying to start fires at her residence on 3 separate occasions. However, the police found no evidence of a break-in, suggesting that Cindy herself must have started the fires. The cops also conducted a week-long surveillance during which nothing happened. The clincher was a renewed sound of harassing calls which, according to phone companies, Cindy had made herself. So now this whole case really confused me because, now she's making these phone calls. So now in my eyes it's like she is screaming out for help. Why? Is she really afraid of someone? Is someone hurting her? And the fact that they can't catch her, she's trying to make the police maybe work harder. I don't know. But see, now the fact that they found phone call records finding that Cindy actually was the one who made these phone calls, it's a little disturbing. Now more convinced than ever that Cindy was faking, Detective B passed on the case files to a colleague, Detective Carol, and asked for her opinion. After reviewing the files, they all agreed she believed that Cindy was staging the incidents herself, although to what end was uncertain. Soon, the police would have another episode to investigate. To what? Right, why? It couldn't be for attention because you're hurting yourself. On December 11th, 1985, Cindy Hack took a lunch break from work and never returned. She was found hours later wandering on the University of British Columbia campus without shoes or a coat in the middle of the Canadian winter. A black stocking was knotted around her throat, and there was a needle mark on her arm. Incoherent and confused, she was unable to remember what had happened to her. This time, however, the police had decided to confront Cindy head-on. The gloves were off. Cindy was informed in no uncertain terms that she was faking and that she might be facing criminal charges if she continued. was also advised to see a psychiatrist, something she declined to do. It's like she's declining anything that would help her case or help her be safe. And then the police thought they solved the case by putting a scare on Cindy. They would soon be proven wrong. In April 1986, she reported another arson attack, blaming her ex-husband. Roy was attending a conference in South Africa at the time, and thus could not have been responsible. This latest incident saw Cindy evicted from her home and forced to take a 6-month leave of absence from her job. She was depressed and suicidal. Even the unlicensed therapist she was seeing, and why would you want to go to an unlicensed therapist at that, she was seeing, now believed that she was faking as well. He recommended to commit her to St. Paul's Hospital, where a staff psychologist agreed that everything that happened to Cindy, the harassment, the attacks, the apparent attempts on her life, were all a figment of her imagination, all the result of a psychotic behavior on her part. She might not even been aware of what she was doing. Maybe this was the result of multiple personality disorder, with one part of her psyche deliberately tormenting another. It was a neat theory, one that might even be validated, had Cindy not ended up dead. On July 5th, 1986, Cindy was released from the psychiatric ward at St. Paul's. Although she remained under the outpatient supervision of Dr. Friesman and showed considerable improvement under her care. In September, she changed her name by deed-poll to Cindy James and bought a house in the Vancouver area of Richmond, where she lived without apparent harassment from her tormentors. Again, I would probably, like if that was me, again, I would be living with my brother in Indonesia. I would be living, she was from Canada. I would try coming to the States. I just would not be in that area. I would not. It was not all plain sailing, though. In November, she was fired from her job for poor work performance. This was a blow to Cindy, who loved working with children. However, she showed her newfound resilience by landing on her feet and finding employment at Richmond General. The bad old days of mysterious attackers and threatening letters and murdering kittens seemed to be behind her. That was on July 15th, 1986. She was released. She got fired. Then she found a new job. That was July 15th, 1986. But then, in the late August 1987, Cindy reported that someone had cut a screen at her home and pried open a window. A month later, she reported a broken window, and in February 1988, an attempted break-in in her basement. Things were escalating again. I have no idea why this lady did not have any cameras up. At around midnight on October 26, 1988, private investigator Ali Caban was awoken by an alarm he had installed at the house of his client, Cindy James. At least he, put something in. He raced over to the residence and found Cindy hiding in the garage, partially nude. Again, a black stocking knotted around her neck, her hands and her feet bound behind her back with another stocking. Cindy claimed that she had been ambushed while getting out of her car. The police, by now familiar with these incidents, put it down to another elaborate hoax. They would soon be proven driveway at a strip mall a few blocks from her house. Stopping to investigate, they noticed blood on the driver's side door. They immediately called the police. The search for Cindy James would continue for a week before construction workers found her body in an abandoned house about a half a mile from where her car had been discovered. Cindy was lying on her side, fully clothed, her hands and feet tied behind her back, with that same black stocking. There was a needle mark on her arm. This time, something had been introduced into her system. An autopsy will reveal that she died from an overdose of morphine and other drugs that were given through an IV. On the face of it, she appeared to be the victim of a brutal homicide. However, the police thought differently. They believed that Cindy had committed suicide. Now, it's easy to sympathize with the authorities on this one. They had 7 years of dealing with Cindy James, investigating close to 100 separate incidents in that time. They had also had many psychiatrists backing up the theory that Cindy had staged these incidents and might be suffering from multiple personality disorder. However, the condition that Cindy's body was found in simply does not back up the finding of suicide. It is not impossible to tie one's own hand and feet behind one back. Aside from that, there is Cindy's demeanor on the day she died. Would someone who wants to commit suicide or who's planning to commit suicide really go for a makeover? Would they really buy a gift for an upcoming birthday? Would they really invite friends over for a card game? No, the idea that Cindy James killed herself falls short of the mark on numerous accounts. So yeah, everything else might have been a hoax or whatever and lies, but in this incident, like they're saying, she could not have given herself all those meds through the IV and then tie her hands and feet behind her back by herself. Like, it would have been completely impossible. And again, if she wanted to kill herself, no one is doing treatments and massages and buying gifts and inviting friends over to the house. No one's doing that if you are planning suicide. It doesn't make sense. And the coroner doesn't know what to do. He refused to call the death a suicide, but he also stopped short of calling it a murder. Instead, Cindy's death was recorded under the vague term unknown events. 2 decades later, we still did not know what happened to her. If she was she really stalked? Was she really murdered? And if so, by who? And why? Perhaps we will never know. And on that note, I'm going to end this video. I did not think this story would take up 40 minutes, but it did. So I have another story that I might do on a later time. So on that note, I love you guys for watching.